Hello and welcome. Today we're going to dive into one of the most foundational concepts in all of Christianity, and honestly, one of the most misunderstood, the Trinity. Now, this isn't about winning a debate. Think of this more as a shared exploration, a chance for us to look at this core belief with fresh eyes and a spirit of real curiosity.
So let's get right into it. This is a fantastic question that you see all the time, and it comes from a place of genuine curiosity, and that's exactly the spirit we're going to bring to this explainer today. We're going to tackle this together.
Okay, first things first, and this is absolutely non-negotiable. Christians, just like Muslims and Jews, are strictly monotheistic. The belief is in one God, period. This is the bedrock, the absolute foundation for everything else we're about to talk about. We have to start there.
And that immediately leads to a perfectly reasonable and logical question. If God is one, then how in the world can Christians talk about a Father, a Son, and a Holy Spirit? I mean, it sounds like a flat-out contradiction, right? So to really get to the heart of this, we first have to clear up the single biggest misunderstanding.
Let's be crystal clear on this. Christianity absolutely fundamentally rejects the idea of three separate gods. That's called polytheism. So this slide you're seeing, this idea of 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, this is precisely what the Trinity is not. This is a total misunderstanding of the concept.
So a better way to think about it, and look, it's still an imperfect human framework, is to think with multiplication instead of addition. You see, 1 × 1 × 1 is still 1. This gets us a little bit closer to the core idea, a single divine essence, fully shared yet remaining one single undivided being. Now, let's build on that idea.
So how does that even work? Well, Christian theology makes this really crucial distinction between God's what and God's who. There is only one what, a single, undivided, divine essence or substance. But within that one being, there are three whos, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They are three distinct persons who exist in a perfect, eternal relationship within that one essence.
Now, anytime we use an analogy for God, we have to admit it's going to fall short. I mean, we're using our finite human words to try and describe an infinite reality. But to help understand, I'll use an analogy that isn't perfect, but is helpful. It can be a useful tool just to get our minds around the concept.
Okay, so think about the sun. You have the sun itself, the giant star. Then you have the light that comes from it, and you have the heat that it gives off. Now the star, the light, and the heat are all distinct, right? You can talk about the light without necessarily talking about the heat. But here's the thing, you absolutely cannot have one without the others. They are inseparable, coexisting parts of the single thing we call the sun. So you've got three distinct aspects, but one single reality.
This brings us to another really important point, and it's a big one. What does that title, Son of God, actually mean in this framework?
And this distinction is absolutely crucial. The title Son is not meant in a human, biological way. It does not imply a physical birth or that God has a wife or anything like that. Instead, it's a term used to describe an eternal relationship and a shared nature. The classic theological phrase is that the Son is begotten, not made, which is a fancy way of saying he shares the very same divine essence as the Father from all eternity. So you might be thinking, okay, but why? Why have such a complex structure? Is this just some kind of philosophical game? Well, according to Christian thinkers, the answer is a firm no. They argue this structure is absolutely essential to understand God's very nature and, more importantly, his actions in the world, especially the event of the cross.
So on one hand, you have this idea of perfect justice. A holy God can't just overlook wrongdoing. Sin has to be addressed, right? But on the other hand, you have infinite love. A loving God doesn't want to just abandon humanity to the consequences of that sin, and that creates this powerful tension right at the heart of the theology.
You see, from the Christian perspective, this problem is so immense that only God himself could possibly provide the solution. The crucial thing here isn't a simple declaration, but an action, and it's how this action unfolds that is key.
And this brings us to what you could call the drama of salvation. It's understood as a single event where one God acts in three distinct yet totally unified roles to resolve that core dilemma of justice and love.
Let's break these roles down. First, there's God the Father, who represents perfect holiness and upholds divine justice. In this view, he can't just ignore the consequences of sin. His justice is absolute. Second, there's God the Son, Jesus Christ, who enters into human existence to voluntarily provide the perfect sacrifice, to pay the price for that sin. And third, you have God the Holy Spirit, whose work is to apply that salvation to individuals, making that forgiveness personal and real in someone's life.
Now, this is an absolutely critical point in the Christian understanding of all this. The idea isn't that God passed the debt onto someone else, like an angel or some other created being. No, the claim is that God himself, through the Son, came down to the human level to personally take on that responsibility. So, this experience of one God acting in three distinct ways for one single purpose, well, that's the very foundation for the doctrine of the Trinity. The idea didn't just appear out of thin air as a philosophy, it emerged as a way to explain this powerful experience of salvation. And this brings us full circle, right back to where we started. That original dilemma of a God who is, at the very same time, perfectly just and infinitely loving.
So from this perspective, the Trinity isn't some abstract philosophical puzzle. It's the very framework that allows God's justice and God's love to be perfectly fulfilled at the same time. His justice is satisfied by the Son's sacrifice, and his love is demonstrated through that exact same sacrifice. Neither justice nor love is compromised. It's one God accomplishing one plan in three personal ways. And this really gets to the heart of the matter. For Christians, the two concepts are inextricably linked. The argument is that the nature of God as triune is precisely what makes the work of God in salvation possible. To understand the meaning of the cross, it has to be the Trinitarian God. One is the necessary explanation for the other.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought, which lies at the core of this entire theological structure. Is the Trinity a logical contradiction? Or is it the necessary framework for a God of both perfect justice and self-sacrificial love? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.